What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right. When I was doing my top 10 small forwards listing, you may not recall this, but I said in that video about Elgin Baylor that I was concerned about him because he hadn't really been seen in public for several years, and that often indicates declining health. And I said he was now 86 years old, so I am kind of becoming concerned about him and hoping that he was okay. Well, today, March 22nd, 2021, Elgin Baylor passed away at the age of 86 with his wife and family apparently by his side. Over the years, Elgin Baylor has become one of the most underrated, possibly the most underrated player in the history of the league. Um, Unlike his counterpart in Major League Baseball, Hank Aaron, who went out with a grand reception on television and the media. Elgin Baylor is not getting much fanfare. Um, Part of that may be the NBA's fault. As I've said before, over the past several years, they do a terrible, piss poor job of celebrating um, their founders and their legends. Major League Baseball does a much better job. Everybody knows who Babe Ruth and Hank Aaron and Willie Mays and everybody knows these guys and their numbers. The NBA, not so much over the past 30, 20 years, I'd say. And contrast this to when Wilt Chamberlain passed away October 12th, 1999. And I remember ESPN ceased regular programming to cut into that news that the legend had passed away. They used to do that. They used to respect their legends. But now it's all about ratings and upper management only caring about the bottom line and keep talking about LeBron 24/7. Don't talk about any of these dead people, none of these old people. They don't matter. Well, on this channel, legends matter. So I always gave these guys roses in life, and I'm going to give them a proper send off right now. So Elgin Baylor, and yeah, you read that title correctly. He is the most important Laker legend ever, and I'll tell you why. After the George Mikan dynasty, the Lakers franchise was in serious trouble. At that time, they were still in Minneapolis, but after retirement of George Mikan and Vern Mickelson and Pollard and that whole dynasty was done, um, they were a really bad team. And they were on the verge of folding. They were hemorrhaging money left and right. They weren't selling tickets. The Minneapolis Lakers were on the verge seriously of folding. They're going the wayside and going the same fate as the Chicago Stags or somebody like that. The Toronto Huskies. But Elgin Baylor agreed to sign with the franchise, and he was able to put asses in the seats. And while eventually the Lakers still had to leave Minneapolis to go to LA, he kept that franchise from folding. He kept them at least breaking even. Without him, there's no doubt whatsoever the Lakers would not have continued past the late 50s. There would have been no Laker dynasty. There would have been no 72-69 win Lakers. There would have never been no Showtime Lakers. There would have been no Shaq and Kobe. There would have been no late Lakers Renaissance in '09 and '10. And LeBron would not be playing for that franchise today. So that is why I say that he's the most important Laker of all time. Elgin Baylor was groundbreaking in a lot of ways. Now, people may not connect him like they do Bill Russell and Muhammad Ali and Jim Brown, and others, Kareem, or the Civil Rights Movement, a little bit because he came in just as that was starting to take off in the mid to late 50s. But Elgin Baylor was uh, revolutionary in a lot of ways. Number one, he is the first real, true, first black superstar. Now, Bill Russell, of course, came the year before, but Bill Russell was not an offensive star. Secondly, even Bill Russell's rookie year, the rookie of the year went to Tom Heinsohn, who passed away last year. But Elgin Baylor was an offensive superstar, and he proved the notion that fans wouldn't see a black player, you know, completely. That was bullshit. Okay, he was the first real, true, dazzling player. The exciting, acrobatic, high flying score, perimeter score. He was the first one. You know what I'm saying? That was real athletic in any way and sense. You had other guys like Joe Fulks and Paul Ayers and guys like that, but they paled in comparison to what Elgin Baylor could do. The variety of shots, being able to hang in the air, dunk on people. Even though that was kind of frowned upon in games back then, but Elgin Baylor was the first one to do that, and he was the most unstoppable offensive force the league had seen up until that time. You know, uh, his 71 points against the New York Knicks broke the, at the time, NBA record for most points, which had been held, I think, for about a decade by Joe Fulks. 71 points ultimately will be broken by Will Chamberlain, not once but twice. You know, but Elgin Baylor before the knee injury was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Rookie of the year, I believe he won an MVP award, 11 time All Star, 10 times All NBA, I believe it was. Uh, just simply a magnificent player. Still holds the NBA record for most points in a finals game with 61, which he established back in the 1962 NBA Finals, which was 59 years ago this year. No player has touched that 61 point game in the finals since. And only one player, Michael Jordan, has scored more points in a playoff game, period. Elgin, to give you an idea about how dominant Elgin Baylor was before his devastating knee injury, it was in '66. Uh, for his career, he averaged 27.4 points, 13.5 rebounds, and 4.3 assists per game. So this is a guy that was a tremendous scorer, a dominant rebounder for his position. Remember, he was a small forward, 6'5", about 200 and I think 25 pounds. And he was an underrated passer, really good passing, a small forward. But the first couple of years of his career, from 1959 to 1966, Elgin Baylor averaged 30.5 points and 15 rebounds per game, 4.2 assists per game. I mean, absolutely just remarkable player. In 1961-62, while only playing 48 games due to military service, Elgin Baylor averaged a mind-boggling 38.3 points per game that season. And many people erroneously claim that Michael Jordan has the highest scoring average for any player outside of Will Chamberlain. It's not true. It's Elgin Baylor. Elgin Baylor averaged 38.3 points per game, 1961-62. And remember, yes, you could say that the pace of the game might have, you know, balloon some of these numbers. But at the same time, these guys didn't have the benefit of the 3-point line either. So after the knee injury, Elgin Baylor came down to earth a little bit more. He was more around a 25 points per game, maybe 11, 12 rebound guy. But ultimately, injuries began to take their toll on Elgin Baylor. And by the early 1970s, he was pretty much done as a star. Um, and of course, ironically, I think he retired 9 games into the 71-72 season. The very night that he retired, the Lakers began their win streak of 33 consecutive games. They were going to go to a 69-13 record and win the title. Maybe if Elgin had held off just one more year, riding the pine, maybe could have won a ring, but he went out on his own terms. If he couldn't be Elgin Baylor, he didn't want to be out there. Now, after his playing career, Elgin Baylor, I believe, coached briefly. I believe he coached the New Orleans Jazz. Ultimately, New Orleans moved to Utah, but that's how they became the Jazz because what the fuck is Jazz doing out there? You know what I'm saying? But he coached New Orleans Jazz. But what he's also probably most well known outside of his career is he's well known for his association with the Los Angeles Clippers. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he was general manager of the Clippers for several years, going back to the 80s, I believe. And when you look at Elgin Baylor's accomplishments as a basketball player, he was the All-Star Game MVP in 1959. He's on the 35th and 50th anniversary teams. His number 22 is retired by the Los Angeles Lakers. And he was also a star in college, the NCAA Final Four Most Outstanding Player, consensus First Team All American in 1958, consensus Second Team All American in 1957, and he was the NCAA season rebounds leader in 1957. And his number 22 is retired by the Seattle Redhawks. And he was the NBA Executive of the Year with the Clippers back in 2006. I believe that's that team that had, I believe that's that team 2006 that had, what's his name? Hubie Brown as the coach. And I think they won something like, didn't they win like 50 games or something that particular year? I can't remember. But yeah, he was a really good executive with the Clippers. Um, you know, a franchise that many people just, you know, didn't really, have any faith in. But that's it, man. That's all I got to say, man. This is a devastating blow. Another legend is gone. And someone in the comment section asked me, why are we losing so many of these guys? Well, the thing is, it's that time. You know, um, these guys have been blessed with longevity, for the most part. But the NBA is not really that old. Think about it. The NBA itself is only 75 years old. Major League Baseball has been around for over 100 years, well over 100 years. If you count, you know, going back to its original history, it's 150 years old almost. The NBA is half that. So a lot of these guys are still alive. Considering that these guys started playing basketball in their 20s, a lot of these guys, from the 50s onward are still alive, but it's getting to that point where that generation of players from the 50s and 60s, they're getting old. They're getting into their 80s and approaching 90. It's that time. It's no longer 1992 when these guys were in their 50s, late 40s, early 60s. They're getting up there. and we were very fortunate to have him this long anyway. I remarked to Bruce Blitz in an email. This is back in 2010, I think 2011. I told him then, I said, you know, we have to prepare to start losing these guys because they were getting up to an age where, you know, it's that time. And then, all of a sudden the floodgates opened up, Bill Sharman, Moses Malone, you know, Daryl Dawkins, a lot of a plethora of the older guys just not coming to mind right now. Dolph Shays, all those guys, but rest in peace to Elgin Baylor, man. Gone at age 86.